Imagine a jolt, a sharp thud followed by a sickening, stomach-dropping lurch. Just another rough patch on a St. Louis street, or so you thought. Because a day later the tire pressure light on your car starts to blink rapidly and angrily. Pulling into the repair shop, you knew it wasn't just bad luck. It was a pothole, a gaping wound in the road you'd driven over 1,000 times. As you swipe the credit card, a wave of frustration hits you. We pay taxes. We expect basic things like roads to be maintained. Instead, each pothole feels like a slap in the face by city officials, a reminder that our infrastructure is crumbling, and with it, our money and sense of security on the very streets we drive. And there's nothing you can do about it. Or so you thought. The streets in St. Louis City are, for lack of a better word, horrendous. At least that's from my own experience. In order to ensure I'm not alone in my own St. Louis City street opinions, I went out into Forest Park and asked some of the local citizens what their thoughts were. Alright, so first of all, could you just explain, I guess, where you live, what part of St. Louis you live in?
I live in University City.
Alright. And what are your thoughts about the streets here in St. Louis City?
Well, it's really varied, and the parts of St. Louis City that I think don't have adequate resources, you see a lot more potholes and streets not in good repair. Right. So to me it doesn't seem even. Like Clayton, the streets look much better than they do in North City or South City.
Okay, cool. And so on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the streets?
I guess a 5, and I'll just put in my bias. I really wish we would move towards more mass transportation and get off the streets, and then we'd have less worry about potholes.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
I live in Fox Park currently. I think right now there's still a lot of work that needs to be done with the streets to make them safer for cyclists and safer for people who are pedestrians or transit riders as well, because right now they're a little rough, especially if you're a cyclist, like with potholes or with crazy drivers who don't care about your safety. You have to be very cautious. So I think streets need more equity, and they need to be safer and better designed so that they are actually safe.
Very cool. And on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the streets in St. Louis?
Right now, I would give the streets a solid 3, maybe even a 2.5.
All right. Thank you very much. As you could hear by many of the local citizens, the streets in St. Louis are very much disliked by the majority of the population. So bad, in fact, a star was born. A local celebrity who has figured out how to make a living off of criticizing the local streets in St. Louis.
St. Louis, Missouri, wouldn't you know it? Worst drivers, St. Louis City, wouldn't you know it? Worst Worst roads in America. St. Louis, Missouri, wouldn't you know it? Worst roads in America.
St. Louis City, wouldn't you know it? Worst roads in America.
St. Louis City, wouldn't you know it? Worst roads in America. I'm here at 55 in Gravois, on the on-ramp, standing in a pothole that I hit, and I ripped the fender off my car.
Meet Tony Bam. With just his camera and knack for humor, Tony has turned the bumpy rides of St. Louis into an Instagram goldmine. By simply poking fun at the city's notorious streets, he's not only captured the collective frustration of thousands, but also turned it into a shared laugh. Now, with millions of views and over 40,000 followers, I was eager to sit down with the man himself to figure out what his inspiration was, and how it has related to the ongoing pothole issue within St. Louis. But after many failed attempts of reaching him, I found an interview a St. Louis reporter conducted that answers all the questions I would have asked him.
My name is Tony Bam. I'm an actor. This past year, I decided to start creating content around the roads and try to make an impact on some of the road conditions. So the purpose for the content this past year was to create an impact and maybe get some of the roads fixed, but also make light of kind of a bad situation, an unfortunate situation that we all have to deal with every day. We're in the trenches down here on Broadway, and well, this one's been here for about 10 years. Every one of these cars has to avoid this pothole right here. You'd have to go out of the lane to avoid it. Getting pulled over for, not staying in your lane properly is kind of out of the question on most of our streets. About 30 cars went by, about 8 hit it. If one pops their tire a day, that's too many. All kind of debris all over the road over here. It looks like this puddle's caused a lot of damage. Really, this intersection is as dangerous as really it needs to be. Adding a pothole to the equation is just a recipe for disaster. Let's just do a little bit of grade school math here. If this pothole pops one tire a day at $160 a tire, 365 days a year, that's $58,400 for this one pothole. Imagine all the potholes and how much they're costing everybody. So I think it's important for St. Louis to make these changes to the roads, not only for the citizens, but also people that are traveling here. It'd be really unfortunate for someone that's just visiting St. Louis for the first time to blow a tire or bust a wheel or even crack an axle. Hitting a pothole on the road could really, damage your week. It could, be a headache for the month for some people, and that's really unfortunate. It's all around embarrassing for our city, not only for the people that have to deal with it every day, but also people traveling here. I feel like there actually has been change. Here at Grand and Gravois, there's a pothole that was there for about 8 months, and after we did the first video, they fixed it, so we came back, did another one. Stand next to a pothole that they fixed, and I don't know if the mayor or MoDOT got the message. It was like, this is great that they're doing this one pothole, but let's get them all fixed.
St. Louis City and St. Louis County function as entirely distinct governmental entities, a rarity in the United States outside of Virginia, Maryland, and Nevada. This stems from a power move by wealthy city residents in the 19th century seeking to exclude rural voices from urban decision-making. These elites engineered a split from the county. The disjointed governance hinders regional coordination and creates very costly redundancies in basic services like street fixtures, libraries, fire departments, and police. The 2020 Better Together campaign sought to reunify the city and county. However, the initiative faced a plethora of accusations of corruption and undemocratic practices, which was then fueled by allegations that it was linked to privatization schemes. The proposal would have disproportionately advantaged wealthier county municipalities while weakening the power of many residents. Unsurprisingly, Better Together ultimately collapsed, making the thought of reunification very unlikely. The system for addressing structural road issues, bridges, and other infrastructure problems in St. Louis City relies on something called ward capital. Each ward receives roughly $1.2 million annually, a laughably insufficient amount considering the scope of repairs and the ongoing depreciation of the city streets. This system is flawed in that it allocates funds without considering the vast differences in traffic volume and historical lack of investment in predominantly black neighborhoods. In most American cities, there's typically a streets department that covers the entirety of the city and metropolitan area. However, once again, due to the two distinct governmental entities, St. Louis and St. Louis County has to have its own separate street departments. If that wasn't enough of a mess, get this. At random, there are some city and county streets that are managed by the Missouri Department of Transportation. This means that if you want to request a pothole fixed, the city-county legally cannot perform the fix, and you'll have to contact another separate entity of MoDOT to request a pothole fix. Missouri boasts a multi-billion-dollar budget surplus, largely fueled by taxes paid by St. Louis residents. Yet the city receives less from the state than it contributes. Instead of using these funds to improve infrastructure, underfunded schools, or other vital needs, the state prioritizes tax cuts for the wealthiest of Missourians. This tax cut is also unlikely to generate the promised economic growth. It has severe negative consequences for the state budget, which is why our streets are severely underfunded. Similar policies in Kansas led to significant economic disruption and undermined the state's ability to fund essential services. Missourians depend on these services, and these cuts have harmful ripple effects across the state. The state also unfairly drains the city of resources while simultaneously attempting to cripple its revenue source with the elimination of the 1% earnings tax. This has a catastrophic effect on the city's budget. So I took the issue to a city official and spoke with Bethany Williams, the director of St. Louis City Streets.
My name is Bethany Williams, and I am the director of streets for the city of St. Louis, and I oversee street maintenance. I oversee permits for the city of St. Louis to have block parties, things of that nature, our trash service. I oversee our city towing division, as well as all of the signal traffic and lighting across the city. So we know that potholes are very serious across the city of St. Louis. Since I've been here, we've implemented different plans evaluating the number of potholes that we have. Currently, we're looking at how can we do more paving. You know, overall arching, that's the top goal that everyone wants. Everyone wants that shiny new black pavement, you know, new striping, things of that nature. And we see with funding, some of those things just may not be possible. So then we have to step in and evaluate how do we maintain them. We have so many potholes. We use this program now in the city called LoStat. It tells me how many CSBs I have in the department. And in that, I can go out and pull how many of that is just for potholes. So where before we would just say a pothole. Well, then now we've broken it down to potholes on our arterial routes and given a time limit to how fast it needs to be filled.
What I've seen is the divide between St. Louis County and St. Louis City has complicated the allocation of funding. Sometimes some roads might end up being neglected because both the county and the city will be confused. Did we fix this road? Should you fix this road? Is that true at all? Is there any difficulty or challenge coming up when it comes to fixing potholes due to the county-city divide?
So we mainly see that more with MoDOT, with our interstate routes, because pretty much you know where the county-city divide is. We have some incidents where the posting may say city limit starts here. But when we look at it on a map, your starting point or limits of the city may be in a different place. And in some of those projects, you may have that open gap area. Who's supposed to maintain? Who's supposed to repair this? So I've said, you know, if you're out traveling and you see potholes, if it's a state route, if it's in the city of St. Louis, let's go ahead and fill it. Some people's processes are different. We're just at a little different advantage with patch material that we have. And, you know, if we go to the intersection instead of the start line, as long as it's not, you know, I'm not paying for too much extra material, I encourage the staff to fill those potholes as well. So we're starting to see now Page Avenue, that's a state route. And so really the state maintains Page Avenue. But in the city, we know that we want those routes to be pothole patched. We know what our winter operations can do and destroy, and we know that it may be some time before we see an overall paving project.
In the 2022 fiscal year, according to St. Louis's collector of revenue, around $42 million were budgeted and spent towards the streets, with only about $7 million of the $42 million actually allocated to pothole fixtures and road maintenance. I just want to know, like, are these numbers true, or is there another source of revenue that you guys are getting? And do you think that the revenue St. Louis is bringing in is enough for you guys to fix the pot?
So that's what we're actually addressing now. You know, I think my first year was just like, here's your budget. I was getting more comfortable with the budget. What I found was that if we had no way to talk about our assets, no way of planning, that made it hard for us to budget funds. So I tried to look at it from that approach of, okay, if I provide you the information, I provide you where we've evaluated different pavements, then you can allocate more funds to us to do pothole patching. One good thing about pothole patching is that's one thing that the streets department is really in control of. We get a line item budget, but when we go through budget season, it's important that we can share the facts. This is how many annually potholes we filled. This is how much material was used. This is how much we spent working with different asphalt quarries and things of that nature to produce this material for us. And then you can look out into the future to say, okay, this is what I need budgeted for pothole patching. Yes, it is a small amount that we see in the budget. We do have a dedicated line item where we pay for just pothole patching material. And so we see that we pretty much use that whole entire line item plus some just for material. And so you still have to have labor, you still have to have equipment, you have to have things of this. And so we are pulling those, labor from a totally different line item. We're not able to contract out the work because of the dollar amount is so small. And so we're having to do more of that work in-house.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much.
So for many, potholes seem like proof that St. Louis leaders are incompetent, corrupt, or simply don't care about the average residents. Tax dollars disappear, roads crumble, and Missouri's state government offers little help and instead focuses on enriching the already wealthy. On the other hand, some blame their $600 repair bill on complex issues like St. Louis's fragmented governance, the legacy of racist policies, and the declining federal support for cities. No matter the cause, the consequences are clear. Potholes make life harder and more expensive for average St. Louisans. This issue is beyond politics. It's about the streets we all share and the basic quality of life in our city. So next time you hit a pothole, don't just curse under your breath. Report it to the city, demand accountability from your elected officials, and be part of the movement to not just fix our roads, but the deeper problems that make potholes such a persistent symptom of our city's dysfunction.